You're listening to Hollywood Inclusive on the Good Talk Podcast Network.
Today on Hollywood Inclusive, we are going to take a look at internet trolls, comic book movies.
Brian Fuller, conscious casting versus colorblind casting, Leslie Jones, and a little bit of Zendaya.
We got a lot going on today.
Coming
right up on Hollywood Inclusive.
All right.
Hi, my name is Emily Lawrence. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I am an actor, writer, and producer. My current project is a sci-fi short film called Lilith in the Garden, which is about genetics, cloning, destiny, what makes us who we are, and how much choice we have in the matter. Our crowdfunding campaign ends Saturday at noon Pacific time, and we would love your support in this endeavor. Just Google or search on Kickstarter for Lilith in the Garden. We're currently, last I checked, 119% funded, but we've still got about $1,000 to go before we reach our stretch goal. We've got about 88 backers and are doing really well, but we would love to have some more support with this project. I'm one of the voices of the entertainment industry. Get ready for Hollywood Inclusive in 4, 3, 2...
Hollywood Inclusive.
Hollywood Inclusive.
Hollywood Inclusive. Hear all the voices.
Hello, people of Earth. I am Deron.
And I am Kirk Moore.
And this is episode 3 of Hollywood Inclusive. Welcome,
people. How y'all doing out there and all that good stuff?
We have many things to discuss today.
Yeah, because it's always some bullshit happening.
A week does not go by.
A day does not go by where there is not some BS somewhere. But we're going to start off with some good stuff and not a lot of, depressing stuff.
I like good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. So I read this article. I'm probably a little late in reading it, but I read this article in Variety, I think it was, about Brian Fuller and American Gods.
Can I just say that I love everything Brian Fuller has ever done? Like, I bet when Brian Fuller had breakfast this morning, it was genius.
I think we've already talked about our shared love many times for Brian Fuller.
And he's got Star Trek coming now.
Well, okay, well.
I know you don't care about the fantasy or the sci-fi, which is unfortunate for you because our entire show today is going to be sci-fi and fantasy.
It is going to be a lot of sci-fi and fantasy. You know what? I will go see my first Star Trek?
Don't even start. Yes, Star Trek.
I will go see my first Star Trek movie since Brian Fuller is directing it.
No, he's doing the TV show.
Oh, so I had to watch. I can't. Never mind. Then,
yeah.
Okay. I can't.
The movies. Well, anyway, we don't need to get into my opinion on Star Trek and Star Wars and reboots and all that good stuff. But
we'll kind of talk about reboots a little bit
true.
too. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? So Brian Fuller. So Brian Fuller is doing an adaptation of American Gods for Stars. I'm pretty sure. For Stars. And Variety, there was an interview and they talked about sort of the very conscious casting that they did in sort of, getting ready to produce and film the movie. So I don't know a lot about the book, but my smart colleague Deron read the book. So Deron, what is American Gods? What is it about?
Okay, American Gods. Neil Gaiman, who is pretty famous as a comic book author and as a fantasy author. It is essentially a world in which all the gods of different mythologies coexist, and they've gotten tired of the old world and they come to America. So there's a little bit of fighting for territory, but also, and I can't speak too much to what they're doing here because that's sort of part of the mystery of the overall story.
And is it one book or multiple books?
There's a sequel called Anansi Boys,
which
I haven't read yet. It's sitting on my shelf at home actually because I found it at a library sale. American Gods is the sort of main one that stands alone.
Okay. So now Brian Fuller is taking that and he's turning that into a series for Stars. And so, they asked Brian Fuller, why did he cast the people that he cast? Was he more so doing sort of colorblind casting and just picking what would they consider the best people for those roles, no matter, race or ethnicity, or, were there specific things in the book where he, the author described the character a certain way and they decided to make sure that they were true to the book. And so, Brian Fuller said that they were very conscious in casting. And so in the novel, I guess the way the article said it is that because the main character, who is called the Shadow, yeah. Shadow, okay. So he was not described as white, so they felt that they had to cast.
See, I don't remember him being described as anything. I didn't think of him as black as I read the story.
Right.
I could totally have skipped over that detail. I believe it. But he was just kind of a dude. He's the everyman that these experiences are happening to as you go through it. The other characters, it makes sense that they would make that choice, right? That sometimes you're going to go in and try to always find the best actor, and other times you're going to have moments where you've got to cast things a certain way, because these people are representing the mythology of cultures, right? So, a lot of the people that they're encountering are, in fact, secretly, quietly gods. So they come distinctly out of different cultures, and if somebody is the head of the Indian pantheon, then they probably ought to be Indian, right?
Well, I mean, and I guess that just gets me into sort of another discussion, sort of a thing where we talk about, like, what is the difference in between colorblind casting and conscious casting? So I guess there have been now several sort of examples of like colorblind casting. I guess the Fantastic Four. I guess Michael B. Jordan was
he played Johnny Torch,
right?
That was in the sort of recent reboot, which is pretty colossally panned. I
actually have not seen it.
Yeah,
so,
don't.
Yeah. Okay.
It's actually like way off. Things went wrong.
Right.
And all the people involved in making the movie admit that things went wrong.
Right.
But any like screenwriting 101 experienced person will tell you that like the structure of I don't know what happened with the script. Maybe the script is all structured out right, but they're just sort of like, they go from sort of, okay, we've established our world to, and then we beat the bad guy, and there's no Act 3 or the second half, Act 2.
Right.
They just kind of skip to Act 3 in a way that makes you think. Anyway, none of this has to do with what we're talking about.
Right. But anyway, so like with Hamilton, that's a good example of colorblind casting. No? Yes. No.
Hamilton is white people need not apply, basically.
Well,
but they're playing white
people. Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of, let's just, so we say colorblind casting, and then we have conscious casting. So we talk about conscious casting, which to me would say like you are specifically thinking that this character is supposed to be this said person because there are certain things that are cultural or or their ethnicity, whatever, that's so specific about them that they need to be cast in a specific person in a specific manner.
The reason for the Johnny Torch, the Michael B. Jordan thing, is that he was playing a role which is traditionally, it's a brother and sister on the Fantastic Four.
Right.
Johnny Storm and Sue Storm. I'm going to earn some nerd credential today.
A lot of it, because I don't know comic book anything.
Sue Storm was played by Kate Mara in the movie.
Right.
And so I don't think there was a huge like, wait a minute, Johnny Storm isn't black, because we've had other... we're gonna talk a lot about comic books later, so we won't get too far into this. But we've had others that if Samuel L. Jackson wants to be Nick Fury, the internet kind of goes, yeah, Samuel Jackson can do what he wants, right?
Right.
That's cool. Nick Fury's black now. And literally...
Well, the same thing in what's Deadpool. Deadpool was not black in... What? Not Deadpool. I'm sorry. What's the guy that Will Smith played?
In Suicide
See,
Squad.
listen, Suicide Squad.
Shot or
Deadshot.
Yeah.
He is not black.
That might not even be the right name. Is he not?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
Maybe we should.
I mean, those characters are fairly obscure in Suicide Squad. Like that was a run that they wanted to mine just for the concept of it.
Right.
But you're starting to dip in pretty far into
the whale of characters.
Yeah, comic book movies have gone far enough that we're well past Superman and Batman now.
Well, right,
and dipping into some stuff. And what happened really is that Marvel was able to get Iron Man to turn into a huge blockbuster, even though that wasn't a established character
right
at the time. And because of that,
Iron Man was good though.
Let's go. Well, no, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk person who's had an impact on the industry, it's Jeremy Swingers.
Who?
The director of Swingers, Jeremy.
Oh gosh, why can't I think of
seeing his face in my head. It's going to come to us. We're going to move past it. But he directed Iron Man, and he sort of, his influence then, between him and Kevin Feige, who runs the Marvel franchise, they really sort of reinvented, here's what blockbusters look like now. And that's why we've been, I'll say, treated to a decade of comic book movies.
A lot of them.
Anyway, my point is, I don't think that people were like, we don't want to see Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Torch. I'm sure there were some people who were saying that.
Right.
The internet is made of trolls and cats and boobs.
Right.
And but mostly trolls. But it was like, how can they be brother and sister? And it was like barely explained in the movie.
Was somebody like adopted?
Adoption. That was it.
That's all you need.
That was absolutely all you need.
Yeah.
It was 100%. Their dad was black. She was adopted. Done. I mean, there was nothing to it.
Right.
So, but it was just one of those things. Like, comic book fans are a particular group of people. I
see. And that's nothing against. I mean, I understand like wanting people to remain true to source material. I get that. You read a book, you want it to be like the book that you loved, or you read a comic book, you want it to be like. I just feel like in certain in certain instances, whether it's James Bond or whether, I just feel like, why do you care?
Yeah, that came up this week too. The Roger Moore. Idris Elba isn't English.
I just think that is so stupid. I just find that it's like, it's not a real person. Like, why do you care? It's not a real person. When we get like a black Santa Claus movie, like a real... Wait, I think Tyler Perry may be coming out with a Santa Claus movie.
Oh, really?
Maybe he has a Halloween
we've seen
movie.
Black Santa Clauses before.
Have we?
Yeah,
like a movie, like Jingle All the Way type of Christmas movie.
Not where it's like full on. This is Santa Claus, and he happens to be black. But I think we've seen like, multiracial Santa Clauses before. I'm not sure.
Whatever. So yeah, okay.
But the thing is, like, it is easy enough to move past, And if anything, you're perhaps exposing racist assumptions. Like famously, when they made the Harry Potter 8, right, the stage play, and they went through casting, and the role of Hermione Granger was cast as a black actress, and J.K. Rowling popped up on Twitter.
I remember that. I do remember that. Yeah.
And she says, "Well, I'm going to go back to the description of Hermione Granger: curly brown hair." Right. So on some level, it's like, well, why were you making assumptions?
Right. Well, I mean, it's because you think about it, like white is like the norm. It's where you start. I mean, people make assumptions because, like, if you didn't name, it's like when they say ethnically ambiguous, or in these castings and stuff like that, it gets into a thing where you're like, okay, well, you don't really necessarily want a black person, and if you do, then you want them to be like light skinned with curly hair.
I mean, ethnically ambiguous is people should stop doing that, right? Like,
it is. That's. I think it's
pick or don't pick.
But ambiguity is beautiful.
Well,
right?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Unless that's a specific thing you're. Anyway, we're gonna get into that later in the show. Anyway, but what do you think? Also, I mean, so going along these lines, there's the conversation about. I mean, how should we go at this as producers of entertainment? Is conscious casting the way to go? Is colorblind casting the way to go? To bring up another comic book example, the CW show, The Flash, took The Flash's girlfriend. I've actually not watched it, so I don't know that much about it, but I know that the character of Iris West, who is the love interest, is black on that show.
Okay.
So they essentially took a role and just changed the color or put an actress in it. So that's colorblind casting, and then I've read people make the argument like, well, that's nice and all that you are attempting to make an effort.
Right.
However, there's nothing about the way this character is being portrayed other than the face of the actor.
And that's my thing is like, I don't want a black person or whether it's a Latino. I don't want an Indian American. I don't want anybody just placed in a role and then there's like no sort of like hint or knowledge of their culture. Because I feel like for the most part it's a missed opportunity, right? So like if this character is a black person, then I just feel like there would be certain experiences that would need to be put into that character when you then develop them for whatever show.
I think that swings both ways. I think you're making a very important point. I also think there are counter examples like Aziz Ansari on Parks and Recreation, who his character's name is Tom Haverford, played by an Indian dude who's kind of into hip hop culture. Never spoken of, right, and because it's never spoken of, or like Louis C.K., which is really surreal on his show, he cast a black actress in the role of his ex-wife, despite his two very blonde children, right, and for a season they never said a word about it, and it did not matter.
Well, I mean, it didn't matter, one, because it was funny. And I think that helps.
I didn't see anything funny about it. It was just she showed up and it made you kind of go, oh wait, huh?
Well, I guess that's what I mean.
The show is so surreal anyway that you're kind of like, oh, I guess I have to go with it because you have to go with things on the show all the time anyway. And after an episode or two, you're like, oh yeah, that's the mom, right? And it's just it didn't matter at all. Now, unfortunately, in my opinion, they ruined it the next season by coming back and layering an explanation on top of it, all to set up kind of a crass joke that wasn't worth anything. Right. But I thought it was kind of interesting.
I guess I can kind of ride with that, but then I just feel like, I don't know, like it's a thing of, I just feel like when you put said person, especially if for 40 years we saw this character as one type of person or a white male. So then to change that person to a black male, I just feel that it's such a missed opportunity just to sort of throw that person in there, because I feel like you're not doing justice to that character in a way that I just think it could lead to more story possibilities, and maybe
I agree
not
with you. And like an example where they did a good job was on The Office when they had Mindy Kaling in the role of I forget what her name was on that show, but she, like, you learned about Diwali because they celebrated it in The Office once, and that was kind of something that she brought to their mix. So that was a useful, like, hey, let's acknowledge this character's background and have it become part of the plot. It was, there was
a TV show that was out a few years ago, and I don't know. I need to think about who was involved, but it was called The Undercovers, and it starred Boris Cujo and I can't even pronounce her name, but they played like black. It was sort of supposed to be like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but they played like these two black sort of like spies, and I remember like I watched all the episodes like this. It was an entertaining show, but the one thing I just kept saying, I was like, these people are just like black going across all these countries and like wearing and no one ever said like there was no mention of them being black, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Because TV likes to sometimes create that world where no one in television has any, like, TV worlds can be post-racial.
Right. I love post-racial television.
Right.
That's beautiful. I wish I lived in that world. But yeah, I mean, and that's the sort of thing. And again, like, I feel that the show was entertaining, but I feel like that's a missed opportunity in that you have these two talented black actors in this role that you sort of just said, oh, well, we really kind of made this for a white couple, but since, you know, let's have some diversity for diversity's sake. And they could have totally felt that these were the two most talented people for the role.
Right.
That is a total possibility. They're both hugely talented and beautiful people. But again, then why have them there and have them be black spies and not really do anything with the fact that they're black spies? So it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That does sound like a wasted opportunity. So what do you think about the current trend of revamping shows with female casts? So we've got, you know, an Ocean's 11,
right,
where now we're going to have all 11 of them be women. There's a few examples, right?
I mean, I think the thing comes out that people want to see themselves represented. And, you know, most franchises, for the most part, especially like huge franchises like that, were like majority white males. So you say people now want to see themselves represented. So it's like, I mean, we are remaking and rebooting and
right.
tooting everything.
I think I have more of an objection to the rebooting part of things. Like, Ocean's 11 with George Clooney was already a reboot, and then they made 2 sequels. And
right.
It's like, I don't at least care if there's a female version of it, because, like, oh my gosh, seen it, you know? But as opposed to ones that are a little bit fresher, like the Splash remake they're doing.
Okay.
So they're redoing Splash, and they're flipping the genders. So it's a male mermaid.
I feel like I did like scroll past that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Channing Tatum is playing the mermaid character.
Of course, Channing Tatum.
For the sake of everyone listening at home, Kirk's eyes rolled so far back into his head just now.
So yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm with it. Listen, if you're gonna remake stuff, then do it a little different. Like, I feel like it. You know, we've seen like 5 different like Spider-Mans in like 4 years. So I feel like if we can do that, we can see a female version of it. I mean, I want the movie to be good.
Well, now we're getting Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, and of course Ghostbusters just happened, which was a big, like, the internet reacted pretty hard on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was a fact because it is such a huge classic and a favorite comedy in kind of genre bending way, and people really like hold it dear.
But doesn't that just make you want more? Like, cool, more Ghostbusters. Give me that universe again.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, but then you want to see that universe in the same way that you saw it before. So it's like with these 4 guys, and is it 4? Right, it's 4 Ghostbusters. So yeah, so you know, and they
even went like, here's the 3 white Ghostbusters and the 1 black Ghostbusters, just to kind of like
I mean, that's what they did,
varying on
what they did in the first one or in the.
I haven't seen the latest one,
right?
Because I'm a dad, and so I see nothing. But
okay.
I think they did a better job, because the first one was kind of like 3 white dudes started a thing, and then they needed some hired help, and they were like, "Hey, do you need a job?" And he put down his cigarette and said, "Yeah, does it pay?"
Yeah,
I think they involved Leslie Jones' character from the beginning.
Right.
At least what I've seen from the trailers.
Yeah, and I mean, and if you think about that, so we've been talking about, you know, these different sort of franchises, and they've been, the franchises, you know, when they turn it into a female driven franchise, they get backlash. Almost all of them have gotten backlash just off jump. So
now poor Leslie Jones is getting a case all by herself.
Yes,
to the
which
point
is
that she's had to talk to the executives at Twitter.
talked to the executive at Twitter. Now the FBI is involved because was it yesterday or today?
It was earlier this week. I don't remember.
They hacked her site and released her passports, naked pictures, and then they started making. This shit just pisses. Listen. This shit just makes me so mad. Like, you know, I don't even know where to start because it bothers me that a few things. One, that out of all, there's 4 women, there is clearly one person who's getting the brunt of all this online bullshit, and it's the black woman, you know, on this in this cast. And it does bother me, and I know a lot of people have made mention that none of her other co-stars have said anything about it. I know Paul Feig has been very vocal about, you know, being upset what's going on, but I don't know if the production was great and the women got along or if they're not friends. I have no idea. I just know that I would not want anybody that I work with, that I respect, to have to go through the bullshit that Leslie Jones, and to me that several black women now have been going through online and being harassed. And I
don't understand, for like, okay, there's racism, and then there's the sort of like, they took our jobs kind of racism. But like, I'm gonna sit down and do the amount of work that it takes to hack into somebody's stuff, and then I'm gonna build it. Like, I build websites for a living, and it's work. I don't want to do that. Like, what motivates a person to the point that they're like, oh, this will be great, I'm gonna, you know,
right?
do all the work that it takes to actively take somebody down and just ruin somebody's life, like, or, you know, at least.
Right, I mean, because it sort of starts with like online trolling, and then it starts into something bigger, and then it gets into like where, like with the thing when the guy was banned from Twitter after, like, you know, changing all of her tweets and making her look, and so like that thing, and I think a lot of people were upset with that because they felt that he was being targeted. Oh yeah, so you know, and that's the thing. And so I think people kind of, you know, have it out for her, and it's crazy because then that died down, and then she was on the Olympics and looked like she was having a great time. She came back to Twitter having a good time, and then bam, this week, and it's like, fuck, let this lady like have
life.
A career, right? Listen,
like
she
her
is
quote was like, you can hate the movie if you want, but like. This.
Yeah, this is, but that's what the thing is. I don't think now it's not about the movie anymore. It's not about people's hate for the movie, because if that was the case, then the other 3 actresses will be getting the same amount of attention and just negativity and nastiness that she is, and she is the only one who's getting this. And I would almost say she was probably the least, quote unquote, famous in the cast. So to me, usually people pick on the biggest star, like that's what they pick on. So for them to target her, like I mean it's definitely clearly racial, because they put all those pictures of like the gorillas and Hammurabi, you know, all that shit, and I just feel like that's bullshit. Like I said on Twitter the other day, like she better than me, because I would have called my cousins, you know, who got a record, and they be like, I'll do this for you. I talk about my cousins all. Because they will fight for me. They will go to jail for me, and that's why we love each other.
All right, we've been going for a long time in segment 1. We're gonna come back right after this with segment 2. We're gonna talk more about internet trolls, more about comic books. Meanwhile, Jon Favreau, first of all.
Jon Favreau, there we go. Look at you.
That just came to me. But meanwhile, all of you listen to us. Join us on Twitter. Is you know, the Leslie Jones case getting people kicked off of Twitter? What, hate speech? Freedom of speech? What's your take on it? And meanwhile, we're gonna pick back up with internet trolls. Segment 2. Here we are.
What's up, people? We're back.
We're not doing commercials yet. We didn't really go anywhere. We just played some music for a second.
That stuff.
But either way, time for a new topic. Although it's kind of the same topic that we've been talking about. It's the internet trolls and the things they get upset about, and casting in particular. This week, it came out that Zendaya, Disney star, has been identified as probably maybe Mary Jane Watson.
I like how you say identified. Like,
well, so this is interesting. At Comic-Con, there were interviews with the director and some of the cast, and they kind of kept it under wraps who was playing who.
Right.
And the director at that point said that Zendaya's character was called Michelle. And then I guess there's a part in the movie where she says, "Call me MJ," which is what Spider-Man usually calls Mary Jane.
Right.
And now this week it's a little bit more like, no, she's playing Mary Jane. It still seems like it's a little ambiguous, and they may have decided to call Mary Jane Michelle as a nod to the fact that they're who knows,
because they are changing the race of Mary Jane. That could possibly be it.
They may have they may or may not be playing with it, or they may have just been trying to keep it a secret as long as they can.
Right.
But the point is that this week the media started to run with the idea that okay, Mary Jane is going to be played by a black character. Of course, the internet, just like we were talking about,
some people were excited and happy that, there was going to be a black female playing Mary Jane. And there were others who were very upset because, Mary Jane has to be white because she has red hair, and white people are the only people with red hair. And they're the only people who can buy red hair or get a red wig or have a red sew-in.
You know what's insane about that?
weave.
Like, we had 3 movies with Kristen Dunst. She's not a redhead.
Listen,
like if we want to get it full
no
on,
one wears their real hair anymore. People just know it. Nobody is it's a wig
except me. This is my real hair.
Well, we're both bald, so
what's
yeah.
left of it.
But that's the thing. Like, I just feel that like they were like, because she has freckles and she has red hair. Like, this is ridiculous.
Now, it should be said, there's a few things to notice here, right? First of all, one of the arguments is, well, the source material says this, and, the source material, like,
right.
Can't you be a little faithful to the traditions of this storytelling and blah, blah, blah? Well, Marvel has been going out of its way to include a more diverse set of characters.
Right.
To the point that if you pick up a comic book today, Spider-Man is black Hispanic. Okay. The character's name is Miles Morales. He picked up after Peter Parker died in one of the storylines. He's back. It's comic books.
You'd know better than I would.
Well, so I don't quite follow comic books. Like the storytelling medium doesn't work for me. It's still based on an old school model of like, once a week we're going to send you 16 pages and you're going to get that much story. And some people are really into the art of comic books. I want to read the story. And
right.
Now, I do think that they do tell some of the most interesting metaphors, and examine society in a way that you can't. And that's, to me, that's when science fiction is interesting, right?
Right.
So, like I still haven't seen Captain America: Civil War, because again, I'm a dad and we don't see movies. But when my kids finally get to where they can go see movies, then finally I'll be.
Then you guys will be.
There's gonna be a sweet spot in like, we want to go see movies, but we can't drive.
Right.
Like right around in there when they're 13 or 14. When I buy them popcorn, send them down to the front row, and then sit in the back myself because they won't want to be seen with dad. But anyway. Like Civil War, I don't know what they did in the movie, but in the book, the Civil War was basically one giant metaphor for the Patriot Act and what we were going through, and at the time in secrecy versus privacy.
Well, I mean, I guess that's what and this is just me getting off topic, just with comic book films in general. Like, I feel like with that type of, I find that interesting because it's thematic, it's metaphorical,
right.
It has like, but then I feel like the majority of them, and this is just me, it's like, superhero origin story, different costume, same.
Yeah, I mean,
from beginning to end.
Certainly, the quality varies, right? Some of them are going to be action movies, and some of them are going to be thematic explorations. I agree with you. I like the thematic exploration.
Right, and I like what TV does with what like Netflix is doing with their superhero movies, because they are
Netflix is owning it as far as I'm concerned.
So I like what they're doing because they feel like real stories, and we get to learn just a lot more about them that we can learn in, like, 90. Well, no superhero movie is 90 minutes. So what, 2.5 hours now?
Right.
2 hours and 50 minutes. But let's get back to just the Spider-Man.
Well, so the source material there, right?
Right.
So Spider-Man is currently a black guy. The Thor is currently a woman.
Right.
So I was setting up that I sort of follow comic books, so I sort of know what's going on. Once a month I'll go to the library and read something from a couple of years ago.
You go to the library?
I do. I'm like an old man. And when I say like an old man, what I mean is I am an old man. But I go, so because they're free there. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
And they'll always have collections of comic books that are put 14 issues printed together under one title,
and then you can just watch. You can just read all of them.
Story, right? Exactly. So I'll catch up that way, or I'll hop on the internet and see kind of what's up.
Right.
Like Thor's a woman, huh? How does that work? So I'll find out from the internet, Odin got mad at his son. He's no longer worthy to carry the mantle of Thor, so he tried to find a successor. And it turns out that the successor was a woman. So there you go.
Right.
Iron Man is going to pass the mantle on to a black girl, a super genius MIT student is going to be the next.
Iron.
Well, I don't know.
Woman.
I don't know whether she's going to be Iron Woman or Iron Man or Iron Girl or whatever.
I just feel like with the and a lot of times these sort of changes, whether in the comic or in the film adaptations, the people get so upset about this, and they're like, you can't ruin you can't ruin these books, or even with Idris Elba, it was the same thing, a black guy can't be Bond, and I just feel like these people are fiction, and it's these same people are like, okay, I cannot believe that Zendaya can be Mary Jane, but I can believe that a dude can get bit by a spider and climb a building and swing across a building.
That's the part that bothers you.
You know what I'm saying? I cannot believe that Mary Jane can be a black woman.
I thought that the best quote to come out of this week was from James Gunn, who directed Guardians of the Galaxy, and he said, "Look, if there's a character whose most interesting characteristic is their hair color or skin color, then that character sucks."
Right. That's
not an interesting character.
Right, exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
Talk about the character development around the character, not around those kinds of things. Now, what do you think? I look at an article. I'm looking right now at an NBCnews.com article about Zendaya playing Mary Jane, and they get sample tweets in here of the people who are saying things about this. There's Chloe Metten at Metten_Chloe says, "I don't think changing the ethnicity, gender, or personality of an iconic character is a good idea. Create new characters." I've heard that point brought up.
I've heard that as well.
How much you want to be Zendaya is how much you want to bet. I think he means to say Sam Weston, AW Sam Weston, all one word. How much you want to bet Zendaya is playing Black Mary Jane because Disney wants to be progressive but can't stand being original.
Well, I mean, but here's the thing. I'm looking at your screen. He put progressive in quotes. They're trying to be progressive. So it's it's the thing. So do you think that they're being fake progressive, or is progressive a bad thing to you? You know what I'm saying? This whole idea, well, people are being progressive or people are being too politically correct. It's you cannot say fucked up shit about people that you used to say 30 years ago and
I've never met this man, but I bet he's putting that in quotes for emphasis.
Maybe
that might line up with his point of view.
I'm taking it out because I just feel it's the fact that it's progressive, ooh, I don't know. I mean, is there something to saying make original things? Sure. I mean, I bet most of us would love to see some nice original hits, but the thing is that these superhero movies are making $1 billion.
Right.
So
no one's going to stop making superhero movies out of source material until either A, we run out of source material,
right?
And frankly, the comic books have we're picking up stories that were told 60 years ago here,
Right.
So there's a lot of source material. Or B, everyone gets tired and stops going to these kind of movies.
Right. And I don't think that I mean, they've had some films that have not done as well as people have thought or they would, but I just think that, you know, these are sort of properties that people have grown up on, so, you know, they want to see them as films. I don't think they're going to go away, regardless of how many people want them to go away.
Now, here's the other thing. I'm looking at these two tweets that the NBC News, I mean, we're talking NBC, right?
Right.
A major news source. They wrote this article, oh, people are outraged, right? And I'm looking at the first tweet. It's been retweeted twice and liked 3 times. And I'm looking at the second one, no retweets and 1 like. If we click through to actually see who these people are, this one guy has 137 followers.
He's outraged. Sam
and this
Weston.
other example has 72 followers, right? So is this, I mean, well, I'm not going to put
is
it in the
there
form
real
of a question,
outrage?
right? I'm going to say it doesn't seem like this is outrage. This seems like now we have major news sources living in an environment where they have to create click-throughs.
Possibly.
And so they have to fabricate outrage. Maybe most people out there don't give 2 shits about who gets cast as what. There's probably plenty of people who don't know who Mary Jane Watson is.
Right.
Wouldn't know that name.
I mean, then does it come down to, or do you feel that they're making something much bigger than what it is, or are we sort of doing what we do now? It's like when something happens, people jump on it really quickly. It only takes one person to say something like this, like Chloe, whatever her name is. She has a lot of E's at the end of Chloe. And, you know, she says this, and if a lot of times, if that celebrity or that star entertainer responds back, then that's when it really becomes like national news or worthy to be, you know, someone to write on it. But
again, I don't think,
but I don't think that it takes that many people for. And again, I don't know if this is a case where maybe people are running out of proportion, but I would bet enough. And this is just going off of, because we've sort of seen these things historically. It has been like a thing where these people are very upset, and where the authors have chimed in and talked about what they thought the characters were in the James Bond situation, you know, stuff like that. So people are like chiming in and saying things about it or whatnot. So, yeah, you know, and Zendaya has had red hair, so, you know, she can be Mary Jane.
All right, enough of this.
Enough.
Let's move to segment 3.
All right, so I want to say thank you to everyone who has been tweeting us, and yes, continue to do that. So
more tweets,
right? We want to continue to interact with you. We really appreciate the feedback. I saw some people quoting some crazy shit I said last week, so I'll try to either say more crazy stuff or maybe not say as much as I normally
There's at
would.
Least a little bit of support for your "What would Judy say?" idea.
Yes, I watched 3 episodes before I came over here while I was doing other stuff, and there was an episode where she kept saying "stud" and "bitch" because it was 2 dogs who. They were breeding the 2 dogs, so they were breeding these 2 dogs, and so Judge Judy was reading the thing, and she was like, and then the stud, blah blah, the bitch, and she was saying technical terms, and you just see these 2 English
fantastic.
Bulldogs just sitting there, and she just kept saying stud, bitch, stud, bitch.
That's like her generation. My grandma used to be like, she would do that. She'd like, oh, I think he smells the bitch up the street.
Like, no one calls dogs bitches anymore. Like, nobody.
But their generation actually did. It's fantastic.
Okay, so let me get off of Judge Judy. I just want to say thank you all for interacting. We want you to continue to do so. I want to give a special little thanks to at W Davis Literary. You have been really great. We really appreciate you. And at Gloria Man 22. Listen, I know that Derez, I appreciate you shouting me out and, doing some retweets. I cannot remember. Don, you as well. We're going to be talking more, Judy. Trust me.
There's been a bunch, and we really appreciate it. It really helps. You wouldn't believe. I mean, first of all, keeping us going, and second of all, getting the word out about what we're trying to do.
Right.
So that helps quite a bit. We also heard this week from Lucy Hay. She is from England, and she runs a website called Bang to Write, kind of like the British idiom, but the right is spelled like a writer.
A writer.
So on Twitter, she's Shouty Writing Tips, or at bang the number 2 and write. And she invited us to write an article for her community. And so we decided, you know what? Sure, we're going to do it right here. So her suggestion was, hey, why don't you guys do a top X number of tips for writers on how to encourage diversity and inclusion with their writing or with their role as a writer.
So let me ask you this, and I just want to make sure I'm clear. So it's more so a thing where it's like we're sort of giving tips of what they should do when they approach projects, or what they should do specifically as they are writing.
I think
whatever
both
pilot
are allowed here.
Right.
So we're and it's a writing community, right? So we're just addressing writers in general, saying, hey, here's some things that we think you can do. So what we did is each of us went away and wrote 5 things down.
Right.
That we thought were things that you can do if you're a writer to help increase diversity and inclusion. And we haven't seen each other's lists. We're going to read them off one at a time here, back and forth. And we're going to then turn that into an article. And it's going to be somewhere between 5 and 10, right? Like
right.
If there's no duplicates,
7 is
10.
Always good, right? 7 something.
So if 3 of our things overlap,
then we know we have to include
Did I do that math right? Anyway, it's going to be somewhere between 5 and 10. Either we both wrote the exact 5 lists down, and then it'll be shorter, and it'll be even greater gems, or we thought completely different on it, and it'll be more, but then you get more. So either way, it's win-win for the aspiring writer.
And I think mine kind of sort of all probably sound the same. So
sure.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Let's dive in. My first one was just plain say so. So when you're introducing a character, you have a sentence or two to tell us who that character is. The sort of required things are bare minimum the name of the character and typically their age,
and
their
kind
age
of
range.
And what they're doing.
What they're doing,
when we see them first.
So like bare minimum, if we're only going to see that character, once you introduce the name or whatever, then you typically do an age. You typically do what the visual is of them,
right?
And then as part of that visual, there can be a physical description, and that certainly can include an ethnicity.
Right. I'm just gonna say I have something very similar to that, so we can say we have one.
Excellent.
That's similar. Mine was be intentional.
Minds.
Be intentional in the characters that you create.
Right.
Specifically the leads and the major supporting characters.
So that means at some point when you're originating your story, you're going to sit down and generate a list of characters. Take a look at that list of characters and decide. And sometimes my corollary to this one, by the way, is sometimes the correct thing to do is to say any ethnicity. Because if you do that, you're helping the producers or the casting directors the directors as they're later on making that project. You're helping them to say, oh yeah, any ethnicity. That means I should be thinking anyone.
Right. And who they think this person should be. And I feel like for me, when I'm writing, typically my main character is usually a black male. I mean, that's the majority. I think pretty much everything I've written original, my main character was a black male.
And there's reasons for that. And that, of course, speaks to why you want to have as many different kinds of people.
Right. And then, but if I write a police drama about race, then I will have my black male lead, then I had my white male supporting character, he had a wife and a father, that person had, so I feel like then when you start to create your world, which will then lead to, I'll go with number 2 since you led with number 1, because this will kind of lead to my number 2. It's like, make sure everyone in the world, just make sure that the people in the world you create, that not all of them look like you.
Nice.
And so that would be, and I'd say look or think like you, because I think diversity of thought is just as important as the, appearance and so
Probably
whatnot.
more so.
Yes.
As much as I love Aaron Sorkin, I don't necessarily need Aaron Sorkin to debate himself in the guise of people of different backgrounds. Like, he can just have the debate with himself, and that's fine. I will enjoy that.
I enjoy Aaron Sorkin debating with Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. But he is, for all of his skill and craft as a writer, differentiated characters is not necessarily his thing, right?
Well, true.
Points of view, yes.
Right.
Because he needs somebody to be the straw man so that President Bartlet can knock him down.
But I think that, to me, that's the great thing about working on American Crime is I feel like we have such a diverse, group of people that I work with. And there's black, there's white, there's Latino, there's gay, there's straight, there's man, there's, you know what I'm saying? So we have so many different types of people. And I think that, one, our show is a show that does discuss very topical and hot button issues. So I think that is important. So I say all that to say, again, getting back to my number 2, make sure, that your world and the characters have a diversity in thought and in appearance as well. So, yeah.
Nice. My next one was watch the pronouns. And where this comes from is when I used to do sketch comedy. One of the things that we would realize over time is that for us, we were writing these like anywhere from 2 to 5 page scripts. And we would then take them to our cast and audition people. We would have the people who are our directors would run auditions with our actors and fill the different roles. Mm-hmm. And one of the gals would always kind of say, "Hey, I'm going to audition for Steve. Is that cool?" And because she did that, we came back as the writers and said, yeah, which of these characters need to have a gender role assigned to them? It's kind of the opposite of what you're saying earlier about
right.
Be diverse in who you're creating, or as I'm saying, be deliberate, like go through and actively choose it. But you go through and make those active choices when you have to. And you don't when you don't.
You don't have to. Right. Yeah. I don't, again, unless it's, to me, and this goes back to the thing we talked about, colorblind casting. It's like the thing where if the race doesn't really serve a purpose, then, then it's probably not necessary to put it in there. Or if the ethnicity, there are times when it's necessary. If it doesn't serve your story or your character, I don't think it's necessary.
It goes back to the stuff that we were talking about before, right? When it's like, are you mining the character's identity for additional, plot or characterization or conflict? And if you're not, then leave it open for other people. So one of the things that we would discover is that, somebody might write a sketch and say, "Oh, the doctor looks at his watch." Right, and we would find a way to rephrase that and say, the doctor glances at the time.
Right.
And by removing his, the doctor doesn't get assumed that they're
male or female. Right. Well, yeah. That's a better tip. I need to use that tip. That's actually a really great tip. So let me get to what we're on 3. You just did 2.
I don't know the numbers. Yeah, that was 2 for me.
All right, so my third one, and this is just, listen, TV shows have consultants. So, when if you're doing a show, whether it's about sexual assault or whether it's about, something that happens in the government, a lot of times these shows are going to have consultants and people that they can call, that the writers can talk to, so that we can make sure that everything is accurate and authentic and whatnot. So I say all that to say, don't be afraid to talk to people about the characters that you are creating. Don't be afraid if I'm creating a Muslim American, there are people that I can call to make sure that within my story, to make sure that my depiction of that, so do not be afraid to talk to people that or go do some research. Right, exactly, because people are glad to tell their story. People want to be represented.
This was one of the ones I had on my list too. I straight up said do some research. And last year I was hired to write a sitcom that takes place in China. Never been.
Right.
don't know, right? But I needed to create something that would be funny to a Chinese audience and funny to an American audience, involving Chinese and American characters. Square one, I had to find out about Chinese sense of humor. It turns out that The Big Bang Theory is the #1 show in China too. Now it's a little bit different. Evidently, they regard Sheldon as something of a sex symbol because of his dedication to his studies.
Okay.
This is what I read.
Wow.
So
Nice.
obviously there's going to be things that are a little
Sheldon
bit different.
the sex symbol.
Right? I read that in one place, I should say. I don't know that. But finding out about the sort of like things that are the differences in humor, in the case of a comedy like I was writing, the differences in perceptions of people and roles, and how men and women interact, and what's considered polite or not polite in order to be able to get, I need my character to be a little rude here. But I'm not going to just bring my American sensibility to it. I need to think about that from a point of view of somebody who's lived in China all their life.
Right.
So absolutely, the research, and I will say at the end of the day, I think I was unfortunately, the thing never got made. Sold the script and it is on a shelf somewhere. But I do think I was reasonably successful in getting, some perspectives that I would never have had if I hadn't, devoted a fair amount of time to learning more about the culture. And now I know more. So
there we go.
Hooray.
I love research, so that's, to me,
it
research
feels so much like actually writing.
It does. I mean, sometimes I'll
writing.
spend more time researching than it takes me to like probably crank out a first draft, and sometimes it can, to crank out an original first draft for me can be, I just start slow.
The good thing is you're fast once you're cranking out pages.
Yeah, I just start slow. Let me go to, so my next one is, and this is, I mean, to me, it should be sort of like, you should be doing it already, but like create like ideas or create worlds, I should say, where diversity is possible. I mean, which should be most worlds. I mean, I just feel like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it should be everything that you create. Diversity should be possible. I think that we're seeing more of that now. Like, but if you take a show like Pitch, and again, this is me not knowing that much about it, but it's a show on Fox about a female baseball player who goes to the major leagues. 5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, to me, anything pre-Scandal, that would have been a white female. And so, I feel that we're getting to a place where, again, I hope that there's more to it and it's just not just a black actress tacked onto somebody that was written for everybody. But I say all that to say, like, create worlds where, that look like reality. I don't, and maybe that's, again, that's my reality. It looks like a lot of different things, and there are a lot of different people in it. I would hope that that's most people's reality, especially if you're a writer. You need to know people and stuff other than just your stuff.
I like it. My next one is mix up the Anglo names. It's easy when you're sitting down to write your cast list out to call people Steve and Debbie and Darla and Jennifer. And it kind of lines up with what I was saying earlier about be deliberate in terms of, in some cases, you're going to actually call out, this is an African American, this person's from Paraguay or whatever.
Right. So you took my 5, and
Okay.
it was because it was the thing that I remember when I would go through the programs, and I remember one conversation, one interview, and they were like, well, what's one thing that you do while you write it? And I was like, I need to figure out a character's last name.
I like it.
And I feel like it's sort of just kind of piggybacking on what you said, because I think a character's last name says so much about the person. It can say if they're single, if they're married. It can say what race they are, what ethnicity they are, what culture. It can just say a lot of different things. And so I really do focus on names a lot. The last names more than the first names, but it's just sort of the same thing.
And it's
like
a slightly
you said.
more subtle way to explicitly call out
A person.
a racial mix. You can say so for example, we were talking about Spider-Man earlier, right? They named him Miles Morales.
Right.
Right. I get from the name that he's maybe black and definitely Hispanic, right?
Right.
Or probably at
or
least.
Latino. Yeah, he could be Puerto Rican. I don't know.
And the producers may cast differently, they may not, whatever, but you're planting that sort of like, okay, as you're picturing this person,
right,
I'm giving you some initial hints about who they are, and it doesn't have to be as explicit, because sometimes people don't, directors don't want to be told, blah, blah, blah. They want to be able to put their stamp on it. Well, you quietly whispered in their ear.
Right. So I mean, it looks like a few of ours did kind of like crisscross.
Well,
so that's cool.
One more. Were you done?
I think that was 5 for me. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
My last one then was stay involved when appropriate. So you write the script, you hand it off. Sometimes, especially if you're in the movie world, they cut you a check and say, bye-bye, please go away, right? We're going to tear this to shreds and make something that sort of resembles the core of what you did, maybe, if we feel like it. In the TV world, much less so. You could very well be involved in producing.
I mean, you would hope that, especially if it's your show, then you're the creator and showrunner,
right.
and you get to produce it and be a part of the casting and work with the executives.
And there's all kinds of projects, especially as you're coming up. If you're writing plays, if you're writing shorts for the internet, or whatnot. Especially if you're doing indie, low budget, no budget stuff,
then you are making a lot of the decisions on your own, and
either
that's,
you're making it or you're handing it off to somebody, and that somebody probably wouldn't mind, you helping out when you do auditions, right? Or if you say, hey guys, can I write the call sheet, right? Because call sheets. Ask any actor. That's one of the places where some of the most egregious sins happen, right? Where you get over and over again, you get 20-something female doesn't realize how beautiful she is, right? Over and over again. That just makes, every actor in the world sad.
and every female want to say to hell with you.
Right. And then, you get the same sort of like black best friend, like the tropes show up. And if you, as the writer, write that call sheet or stay involved, and as they're casting and they're making a choice between two people, you say, but look at what a better mix we would get, what more texture we could be able to kind of captivate if we went
and I
this
think
way.
it's just a thing that people just really just need to be conscious of. And it's not like, people are saying you need to make all of your shows black, or you need to make all of your characters Hispanic, or you need to make all of your characters. It's a thing that, like, listen, this is America. This country is filled with a lot of different people, and people want to see themselves represented on a medium that is broadcast across the world.
It helps your show be more popular anyway.
It does. And I really think that it helps your show to be better. I mean, and I feel that, and as creators, whether you're a writer, whether you're going to be a writer and producer, whether you're going to be a writer, producer, and director, you need to just keep that in mind. I mean, I know it's easy to always hire your friends. I would hope that you'd have a diverse group of friends, but we all don't. Some of us, when we started doing this, I was like, wait a minute, I know a lot of black people, Darren, that we can interview, but I don't know, and it happens. We have circles, we have people we talk to.
Not every show, it should be said, is going to look like a United Colors of Benetton ad.
Exactly. Listen, I'll talk about for a second before we go, girls. Like, listen, I don't know a black woman that wants to hang out with any of those 4 chicks on Girls. So to me,
now would you extrapolate that to Friends as well? Because that's obviously the big, like, 6 white people in New York. Why was there nobody on that cast?
But see, I just feel that Friends, especially because the characters are so like stock sitcom characters, like the fun one, the dumb one, the smart. You know what I'm saying? So I feel that there could have been the black one in New York.
There was room for that.
There was room for that in that.
Instead of Aisha Tyler having to do all the
work. And they had what's her name came back too. What's her name? Gabrielle Union did a couple of episodes. I think. Yeah, I think those were the 2 black females in Friends. So that's what we're gonna end on, black people that were on Friends. That's how we're going to wrap up today.
It probably won't be the last time. All right, so I think we landed at 7 or 8. I'm not sure. We'll get that figured out. We'll include a link in the show notes once we have the article written and sent up. Meanwhile, like we always say, please discuss these things with us.
Discuss these things. Talk to us. Listen to us. Tweet us. I will talk back. Darren will talk back. We'll like and all that good stuff. And we'll keep doing this for as long as you want us to.
I am Digital Deron, which is spelled Deron for some reason.
And I am, what is my name? At Kirkwright79. Yeah, that's my name. I'm going to go and take some Theraflu and go to sleep. Because I'm I feel so sick. So guys, thank you for listening to us today. We're going to have a great night.
All right, Kirk. Good
Good
talk.
talk.